Today we are going to take a look at some things that are real and some things that are not. And we're going to answer this question, how does fire breathing work? The short answer to the question is it doesn't, but the long answer is so much more fun. First, to make a distinction between two things, there is a lot of chatter on the internet, which of course only has correct information, that says dinosaurs and dragons are the same thing. No, dinosaurs are real. This is a major distinction between the two. They are definitely real. I've dug their bones out of the ground. Fire-breathing dragons, on the other hand, of course, are not real. Neither one have ever been seen by humans, and this is one thing they have in common. But the reason for that is because one set of creatures has been extinct for 66 million years, and the other set never arose in the first place. Now, the reason that we're putting dinosaurs and dragons together here is that there are a lot of folks who say that dragon legends are based on human encounters with live dinosaurs or other prehistoric reptiles that, I kid you not, breathed fire. This is the theory. The problem with this theory is it's wrong. All of these individuals have gone on the record as having said, yes, this is either correct or plausible, and two of these are even science textbooks for grade schools that are published by Bob Jones University Press, which is an anti-evolution press. And something to show you here is that every author on this list is an anti-evolution author. That there is, in fact, an agenda behind the dinosaurs equals dragons equation. They're trying to say that humans encountered dinosaurs, therefore they're not separated by millions of years, therefore millions of years did not pass, therefore there has not been enough time for evolution to happen. Now, to support that idea, these folks have come up with a whole bunch of bits of misinformation that have descended like a dark night upon the internet. But what you're about to see is the sunlight of reality peeking over the horizon for your viewing pleasure. So everyone, welcome to the dawn. We're going to go over 10 different pieces of BS, which stands for bogus story, of course. The first one is the idea that bombardier beetles, of which this is a real one, emit sparks or fire or explosions. The idea is that if this can do it a little bit, something big could do it big. The thing is, despite that all these folks have gone on the record as saying that bombardier beetles do this, they don't. What a bombardier beetle does when it encounters a predator is to swing its abdomen underneath itself and spray hot liquid. Now, you don't want to get hit in the face by that hot liquid because hot liquid is hot. But it is just liquid, and one only has to go to the internet, which occasionally does have correct information, and go to YouTube and plug in bombardier beetle, and you can see video after video of them spraying hot liquid with nary a spark, nary a flame, nary an explosion. This, by the way, is a 4-foot-high model that was on the NC Zoo grounds a few years ago with a traveling exhibit of insects, and if you wanted a splash, you could walk by it, and from time to time it would spray. Again, liquid, not fire. Anyhow, BS number 2, which is about to get much more fun, is that a dinosaur could breathe fire by spewing a pyrophoric gas. What a pyrophoric gas is a gas that spontaneously combusts as soon as it hits oxygen. So this would produce flame. And there are examples of this: silane, arsine, phosphine. These are all examples of pyrophoric gases that do exist in the world. And here are two authors, one of whom wrote 2 books, who went on record as saying dinosaurs could probably do this, or maybe plausibly could do this. The problem with this is, if you were to emit a pyrophoric gas from your nostrils or your throat to, say, scare away a predator, sure, the predator goes away, and so does your face. So to give you an example of, well, to really bring it home, here we have something that I got from YouTube. This, by the way, is the only thing in this entire presentation that's not a photograph or drawing by yours truly. The building you see here is pretty tall. This is multi-stories, and what we have here is a tube that forks at the end, so it's got two orifices. The guy on the ground who's not in the picture has his tank of silane and is going open valve, close valve, open valve, close valve. Does this 3 times. Now, if your T-Rex's head is right here, is that face going to survive? If we bring the snarky version into it, this is Dappy Duckbill, who is a dinosaur of the Corythosaurus persuasion, which are the one of the crested duckbill dinosaurs. What happens when Dappy emits a pyrophoric gas from his nose is this, and then this. And if we want to make that a little bit more realistic, here we have a statue of Parasaurolophus, another one of the duck-billed dinosaurs, and you can see this in person in Durham, by the way, in their Natural History Museum there. And here it is, giving you the best case scenario for the animal, in which it only emits a little bit of pyrophoric gas, just enough to justify the moniker fire-breathing dragon. As you can see, it's bye-bye snout. Bogus story number 3, which this particular person came up with. Something to notice, it's exactly the same as BS2. We're just adding methane. The result is going to be exactly the same. Only now you breathe out some methane first, and then you get the explosion that blows up your face. So why even bother to add methane? If you're going to blow up your face, just do it. Anyhow, so the best case scenario here is oral and facial burns, and this is not theoretical. There are actual medical cases, plenty of them, documented in human cases in which a human emits methane, lights a cigarette, and kaboom. And to be clear, humans do not normally breathe out methane. Methane usually comes out the other end. But there is a condition called pyloric stenosis in which the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine, is constricted. So it's difficult to get food from the stomach to the intestine. So it sits there longer than it otherwise would, and it rots. And the rotting emits methane. And when you burp, the methane comes up. And when the cigarette goes to the mouth, kaboom. So what happens next is a series of very unfortunate physiological events that a dinosaur could not survive because medical treatment was not available in the Mesozoic era. Anyhow, so to demonstrate this, we have Daspletosaurus here, a close cousin of Tyrannosaurus rex. Here's the pyrophoric explosion as the methane is emitted, and then the pyrophoric chemical is emitted, and the result is this. The gums are burnt to a crisp, and where it looks healthy and red is not really healthy. Compare this to the healthy pink over here. What this is extreme inflammation right here, and it's so bad down the dinosaur's throat, because this doesn't just propagate out, it propagates in also. The throat is going to be swollen, the animal will suffocate within an hour. You don't want this happening to you. Then there is BS number 4, much more fun. We're bringing electric eels into it now. You can't not have fun with an electric eel, especially if someone else is touching it. We've still got methane in the mix. Now we're going to ignite it with an electric organ, except we're not. A spark is an electrical discharge into the air, and electric organs of electric fishes don't make sparks. The reason for that is air has very little permittivity. This is a measure of the ability of a substance to conduct electrical current. Biological tissue has a very high permittivity. Water is similarly high, and then air is way down here. So it requires an immense voltage to overcome that lack of permittivity. This much, 3,000 volts per millimeter of distance between the two objects. In contrast, 860 volts, less than 1,000, is the maximum recorded voltage ever produced by an electric eel during its discharge. And the torpedo ray has an even smaller one of 220, and the stargazer has an even smaller one of 50. Now, that's not to say that these are weak discharges, because if you touch one of these, you're going to wish you hadn't. And in fact, if you touch one of these, you might get stunned into unconsciousness. And if you touch one of these, you almost definitely will get stunned into unconsciousness, and human deaths have even been recorded. But you're perfectly safe if you have air between your hand and the fish. I mean, unless it's an electric eel, they jump. That's one of their defense mechanisms. They jump at the would-be predator and shock it when they've jumped at it. So don't do this. But if there is air between you and the fish is not jumping, that's not going to happen. It cannot shock you. There's not enough voltage to send a current through the air. And the moment you touch it, though, you kind of wish you hadn't, and you emit words like this that are spelled approximately the same as that. Anyhow, if Dappy Duckbill is trying to create a reputation as a fire-breathing dragon and breathes out some methane as hard as he can and then activates that electric organ expecting a spark to jump from one jaw to the other and cross the gap between the jaws where the methane is, it's not going to happen. The electricity goes from one end of the organ to the other. An observer would see nothing other than this. Now we move to BS number 5. This idea is that a dinosaur could exhale some methane and then ignite it in a different way. Maybe it's got two flint-like structures in its mouth or throat that ignite here or in a crest, and then the methane gets set on fire. There are two problems with this idea. One is that hard parts, like something made of flint, would fossilize. Soft parts don't fossilize so well. Now and then they do, but usually it's the hard parts, calcium carbonate in the case of shells, or bone mineral in the case of bone. That's what fossilizes the most easily. And nothing like this has ever been found in any of the skulls of any dinosaurs. Nothing like that in its mouth or throat or crest. And so now one could argue, well, do we know the entirety of the skull? Well, in everything you see here, yes. And every category of dinosaur is represented here. There are theropods, those are the meat-eating dinosaurs, in which the entire skull is known inside and out. Same goes for some of the sauropods. These are the brontosaur types with the long necks eating plants. The armored dinosaurs, the horned dinosaurs, the duckbills and their relatives. In each case, there's some example in which the entirety of the skull is known, and we don't have anything like this that could have been rubbed together to create the friction to make a spark. The other problem with the idea is the same problem we have with all the rest. If you've got methane around your mouth or snout or your head anywhere, this is going to happen. It's not a good idea to ignite that. Now, BS number 6. Bogus story number 6 kind of saves things a little bit by putting the flame out in front. The idea is there are two separate glands creating two separate chemicals, and they are sprayed separately forward, and then they ignite when they meet in front of the animal. This is a very creative solution to the problem. But the solution itself has problems. First of all, only 2 individuals have endorsed this one, and with good reason. The others have backed off from it because a pair of chemicals that ignites on contact includes an oxidizer and a fuel. These are hypergalls. And what are hypergalls? That rocket fuel. Now, the thing is, when you ignite your breath with rocket fuel, things do not end well for your face. Now, in fact, the moment hypergalls were discovered in the 1930s, that is the very first thing they were applied to, rockets. And it continues to be the preferred application of those things. Now, there is a bit more to this. To go into a little bit more detail, if either hypergall is a gas, it's not going to wait till it gets out here to burst into flames. It's going to hit its partner right there at your snout. And kaboom goes the face. So once again, we have this situation. Another problem with this is that in every known pair of hypergalls, at least one is not found in nature, which means the dinosaur can't make it anyway, or is fatal for the animal to produce. So to give you examples here, ammonia and hydrogen peroxide are things that animal bodies do produce, but the hypergall that goes with it to create an explosion is something that an animal cannot make without dying in the process. In the case of ammonia, the hypergallic partner is liquid oxygen or liquid fluorine, which must be chilled to these temperatures to be liquid enough to spray out as a fluid. And you cannot survive chilling to this much. So the gland would die long before it even got to this temperature. As for hydrogen peroxide, its partner hypergalls are things like this that are either pyrophoric, so kaboom right from the beginning, or kerosene. This might kill you slowly, but it'll kill you. If you've got a gland inside your body that's making this lipid-soluble stuff, which will spread to your entire body over the course of months, and the things it does to your organs, not good stuff, not good stuff. All right, moving on, BS number 7. It is often said among anti-evolution authors that the hollow crests of the duck-billed dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, were storage places for the mixing of chemicals or combustible gases. A whole lot of people went on record as saying that this might be possible. The problem is these internal spaces inside the cavity are actually part of the nasal passage. Try storing something in your own nasal passage. See how that works out for you. This is a place you should not store things because suffocation is the result. You want to keep your nasal passages clear. And to give you a little more detail here, these animals started life with just a little bump on the head, and then as they grow to adulthood, the bump kind of convulses and becomes the crest, and as it convulses, the nasal passage twists around, but it's still there. Another problem with this, of course, is that mixing hypergalls in your crest does this. So we're left back with this. Folks, no matter how many times in the movies a fire-breathing dragon spews the fire out this-a-way, the reality is that if it were doing this in real life, the fire would be right there at the face, burning the face completely off. Anyhow, BS number 8 requires a lot of unpacking. There's a lot in this sentence. And thankfully only one person has come up with this, and we're going to go over 3 separate things that are wrong with this idea. The idea that medieval dragon images showed dinosaur nasal cartilages extending forward from the bony outline of the skull, and that this whatever extended forward housed a fire source. Well, the first problem is that medieval dragon images are not images of dinosaurs. Dragon, the word dragon comes from the ancient Greek drakon, which meant serpent. And in every single case where there is a drakon in a Greek myth, they illustrate it on their vases and their sculptures, etc., with the snake. Here is Hercules with the dragon guarding the apples of the Hesperides, and so many other examples. And when the Greek Empire got traded for the Roman Empire, later the Romans changed drakon to draco, and it eventually became dragon. And every dragon in the Roman stories is, again, illustrated as a snake. And in fact, this continues right up through the early Middle Ages. As long ago, or as recently as the 9th century, we still have the dragon being represented as a snake. It's not until the 8th century that anybody is putting a bird's body, a beast's head, and a beast's paws together with a snake tail to make an illustration of a dragon. The reason for the change from this to this has been lost to history. Nobody knows why they mutated the dragon this way. But that did become the standard. And through subsequent centuries, at the high and late Middle Ages, we still see the bird's body, the snake's tail, which is a retention of this, and then the beast's head and the beast's paws. Again, not a dinosaur, a composite animal. Now, if we go a little bit further in time, get to the Renaissance, what we find is that the dragon changes yet again. They're giving it a boxy mammalian body. They're giving it 4 limbs instead of just 2, and the bird wings are traded for bat wings. And this is when a lot of folks start to think, well, maybe it's starting to look like a dinosaur now. But that's because of the upright limbs and the compressed chest, compressed side to side. So this part of the animal, sure, looks a little dinosaurish, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a dinosaur that's got bat wings in addition to all this. Also, there's not a single quadrupedal dinosaur with carnivorous teeth that's known to science. All the quadrupeds were herbivores. So when you take the whole thing, does it really look like a dinosaur? Not a single paleontologist would say yes to that. Anyhow, so much for that problem. The next problem with all this is the nasal cartilage extending past the bone of the face, and what Isaacs is talking about is this little thing right here, very common in medieval dragon images. And the thing is, dinosaur nasal cartilages did not do that. They did not go past the bone of the face. That is because this is a mammal head, a beast head, and dinosaurs were reptiles. In a reptile, these are same species here. Bare skull, fully fleshed head. As you can see, there's nothing extending past the bony line here except just the skin of the animal's face. There are nasal cartilages here, yeah, but they're inside. They're not extending out. And we know that the same was the case in dinosaurs because in every case where you've got an outline of the soft tissues around the bone, there's nothing extending forward here. So you can see he's got a little fluff on his head. We often call this a dino fluff or dino fuzz. It's a sort of a featherish sort of a thing, and nothing is extending forward beyond the snout. Now, in a mammal we do have cartilage extending beyond the bone of the face. The red line here is the line between bone and cartilage. We humans, same story. This thing that you can wiggle back and forth there, that's cartilage extending beyond the bone of your face. But dinosaurs weren't mammals. They were reptiles. And just a neat little thing to add as a footnote here. The fossil precursors of mammals had bone in their face going right to the edge of where mammals have their cartilage. So it's not that we have a cartilage enhancement, it's that we've had a bone deletion. And moving forward a little bit, more reality is that even when there is cartilage extending beyond the bone of the face, for Pete's sake, it does not house a fire source. Where are the fire-breathing dogs? Where are the fire-breathing bunnies? Etc. So, and besides, if there were any, the result is going to be this. The fire coming out of your nostrils is going to burn your face. It's not a good idea to do this. So if you ever get the notion to become a fire-breathing dragon, just don't. It's suicidal. Or if you're breathing out a pyrophoric gas through this cartilage-enhanced snout, we have this as the result. Anyhow, BS number 9. And now we're getting outside dinosaurs and into this crocodile relative here called Sarcosuchus from the Cretaceous period. These folks here are so impressed by this enlarged snout that they've gone on record as having said, oh, it was a big nasal cavity, therefore a fire source. There's a logical step missing in there somewhere. But anyhow, the reality is that this nasal cavity was only half as big as it seems, because even in modern crocodiles, it's still just, there's one hole here, but if we add the flesh to it, we find that there's cartilage dividing that into 2, so the left and right halves do not communicate in the fully fleshed animal. So this cavity is only half as big as it seems. Plus, there is the fact that enlarged nasal cavities do not house fire sources. Here we have the Aldabra giant tortoise, which has a much bigger nasal cavity than most turtles do. And in fact, relative to its head size, this is a bigger nasal orifice than we have in Sarcosuchus. So if Sarcosuchus had a fire source here because this was big, then an Aldabra giant tortoise must have a super duper fire source. And the same goes for the llama for the same reason. You can see the comparison between that and that. So, well, they do spit, yes. But if you are standing next to the llama cage or the giant tortoise cage at the zoo expecting it to sneeze a conflagration, you will be waiting a very long time. Chances are you will miss dinner. You will get cranky, and that's not good for anybody. Now, still staying away from dinosaurs and moving into pterodactyls. We have BS number 10, that the crests of pterosaurs could have stored flammable gases. Only one person has gone on record as saying that this might be a possibility. Everyone else is staying away from it for good reason. This is not hollow. You can't store anything in there. And to pound that home, let's flip this around and we'll put a rectangle around it to show you what part of the skull that we have right here in the Yale Peabody Museum of Natural History on a shelf, not on public display. Here's the animal's eye socket, and its tip of its snout is over here. Here's the crest, and if we take this and flip it 90 degrees to see whether you can store anything in there, here's the crest. Here's a millimeter scale. It's about 1 millimeter thick. What's in there is a little bit of bone marrow, but almost none, because it's there's not enough room to pack anything in there, much less explosives. And here's another pteranodon, just in case the other was aberrant. Here's the eye socket. The snout would have gone out this way. Here's the rest of the crest extending behind the head. And once again, it's less than 1 millimeter thick, because most of this thickness is actually plaster that they built up so this wouldn't just fall. You can't pack anything in there, much less explosives. So to sum up, nope, 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 and nope. Now, if you want to see the, just to reiterate, real, not real. And if you want to see the rest of the story, what we just saw was part of one chapter in this 10-chapter book. The rest of the story is in here, and there's a link to it. Any questions? Thanks for listening, everybody. This has been great fun.
I don't need no face.